And here we'll take a look at the Aorus Macro Engine software for the Aorus Thunder M7 MMO gaming mouse. When we open up the software, we see it opens to the Profiles tab. If you had the software previously open, say on the macro screen, it would open to that screen as well. We can also go and click the Home button here. If we had another Aorus peripheral installed, that would show up here as well. And then we can double click on what we want to adjust. We can see up at the top we have our 5 profiles here, and the color will be the color that the mouse wheel and the Aorus logo inside the mouse light up to. We can adjust that. I'll show you that a little bit later. So when we click on a profile, we can see all the different keys. We can scroll down with the scroll wheel and see the 16 different programmable keys. It highlights the key here that you'll be programming and shows the basic function. If we want to change that function, we can simply click on that key. If we want to go back, we would click right here to go back. Just single click on the key, and you can see that there's basic functions here that are programmed into the software. So calculator, for instance, my computer, player pause for a media player, volume up, volume down, mute, zoom in, zoom out, go to your desktop, Internet Explorer, your email program, or back to the previous window, or to exit a program. Those are basic functions. We can go all the way up to the top here, and we see we could change that key, that number 1 key, to a middle click, a browser forward. These are all things that are pre-programmed in. If we go to key mapping, we can click and change it to whatever we want to change it to through the key mapping again, which is all our numeric keys, all our alphanumeric, and then there's our function keys, Shift, Control, Alt, Shift plus, etc., Alt plus, etc. So these are all pre-programmed things to help you program the software. And then we can go to our macros. And we see here that all the macros are empty. I have not programmed any yet. We're going to do that now. And if we scroll all the way through, we can see that there are 70 programmable macros. So if we want to go ahead and program a macro here, that would tell this that it was macro 1, but there's nothing programmed, so it won't save it. So let's go into the macro function. And now we can click on the edit button and we can edit macro 1. And you can see here we have the record button, use the pause key, which enables you to use the pause key on your keyboard to pause the macro, and we can either allow that to use or do not use. You can see here you can select from keyboard and mouse and point, which would be movement, or just keyboard and mouse, or mouse and point, mouse only, or keyboard only. So we'll leave it on everything, and then we can put a mix of any kind of key combination that we want to in the macros. Here we have an auto detect time delay. So if I leave it on auto detect and I begin the recording and I hit the A key, and then I've paused again and I hit the H key, and then I stop the recording, we can see that it auto detected a delay of 95 milliseconds before I pressed the A key from when I started recording, and then an auto detected a 4,111 millisecond from when I pressed the H key, and then the timing between releasing those keys. So the auto detect will auto detect time delay between keystrokes that you make, or mouse clicks, or movement. We can also change that to a fixed time delay, which is between 1 and just over 65, seconds that we can put a delay. So if we wanted to, say we're in the middle of a game, and we know that when we enter an area, we want a 20-second delay, but we want to press that key and have that function ready in 20 seconds. We can set that delay to 20,000 milliseconds, which will give us our 20-second delay. Click done, and then that will give us the delay. So then if we begin recording, G, we can see it will give us our 20-second or 20,000 millisecond delay. Down at the bottom we have delete 1, undo if we accidentally deleted something, or delete all to clear everything that we've programmed. And it goes back to the auto detect time delay. So we can do a fixed delay of just 1 millisecond or no time delay. So no time delay would be press the D and release, press F and release, G and release, H and release, press the left click if we move the mouse around, and then press the left click, and it would do those things simultaneously with no delay in between those movements, and then we can stop our recording. And delete all. Then here we have our third button, which is execute once. So it will execute that command one time. So say we're programming the number 1 key on the mouse, it would execute when you press the number 1 key, it would execute it one time. Or we can do loop mode. So when you press the number 1 key, it would continuously loop whatever macro that you programmed until you press the button again. There is also fire mode, which means we could press the number 1 button down, we could hold it down, and it would continuously loop that macro until we released the key. So then we have our features at the side here, which allow us to, let's just program a couple keys with the auto time delay. If you wanted to add more time in between when you pressed down the F and released the F key, we can drag this over and drop it in, put a time delay of whatever we would like, and it will add that additional time delay in. Here we can see it says drag drop macro into editor to insert mouse button command. So if we want to insert the left click, we can drag that over, and then we can click any button on the mouse. So let's go ahead and click the number 4 button. And then we can see here, the right click, and then we can see here press and hold mouse button right. So that allows us to press and hold. This would release. So, and then this here would be a key down command. So pressing a key, this would be releasing that key, and this would be a wheel scroll command, so either forwards or backwards. So if you didn't want, or if you programmed a macro and then you want to add something additional, it does give us some additional options here that we can just drag and drop into the middle, so we don't have to go through reprogramming all over again from the start if we wanted to insert something in between part of the macro that we already programmed. And then we can delete all. So let's just record, and let's do a left click, a right click, a left click, a right click, and then stop. When we're done with that macro, we can save it, and now you can see that it's macro 1. We can go here and we can change the name to whatever you wanted to program that as. And we'll just make it short because you can program up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 characters. So we'll just say L and R for left and right click, and then save, and we can see it sets the name here. Then if we go into that macro again, edit, we can export the macro, and you can see it'll save it as a .ini file. It automatically pulls up the Aorus Macro Engine folder, so we could save this in here. We could change it to, again, as we named the macro, L and R, and save. So then if we ever had to reformat the computer, or you were moving to a new computer, etc., you wouldn't have to go through reprogramming all the macros that you already programmed in. You could export them and then just import them into the software again once you installed it. So that allows us to, then we can go here and we can go to our macros. Again, that was just to our profiles. And then the number 1 key here, if we click and we go over to our macros, we can select that, double click and it sets macro 1 to the 1 key at the top of the mouse here. So let's take a look at our settings now, and we can see you can manage the profiles here, and what that does is we can enable or disable profiles. This is the breathing effect. So the mouse wheel and the Aorus logo that is inside the mouse that you can see through the window, it fades, the color fades in and out. If we uncheck that and click save, then the color constantly stays lit up, so it doesn't fade in and out. We can also change the color, and you can see down here there's red, pink, purple, a deep blue, a lighter blue, a little bit lighter blue, a white, a green, a yellow, and then this is no color. So we can change the color to whatever our preference is. You can save your 5 different profiles whenever we set the color to whatever we want it to be. So we'll change it to purple. It automatically saves. And if we change this one to red, green, etc., it automatically saves that color. And then we can save that. It brings us back to our settings menu. We can go into the DPI settings, which we can see it's adjustable all the way down to 50 DPI, all the way up to 8200 DPI. And we can set each profile independently for whatever we wanted to. So if we wanted all 4 lights lit up and to have that at our highest profile, or our highest DPI or our lowest DPI, we could do that. You can program them however you want. If you press the little lock there, you can set your X and Y axes separately to adjust the comfort or for, your gaming style or whatever you prefer. Down at the bottom here, say, you wanted to go back to the default settings, you can click default, and we can see it defaults 800, 1600, 3200, and 5600. I usually like to leave one set to the maximum DPI, and then the rest just kind of give you a variance. Sometimes in programs like Photoshop or something that you wanted to get real particular, you could drop that DPI on one setting so that you had it low, and then give yourself a standard, and then it saves those settings. So if we go back to the profiles again, that was for that profile. So if we go to the red here, which is our second profile, go into the settings, adjust the DPI, it will also save that DPI for this profile, or we can adjust this one independently. And let's go back to our settings, and we have our wheel settings next. And this will scroll forwards and backwards, and we can see that the mouse wheel clicks with each movement. So out of the box, it's set to scroll at 3 lines at a time. We can drop that all the way down to scroll at 1 line at a time, or adjust it all the way up to scroll at 99 lines at a time for whatever your preference might be. The mouse wheel does not spin freely like some mice do, but if you set it to scroll 99 lines at a time, that would pretty much scroll as far down the page as you needed to, as if you were to spin the mouse wheel freely. And once we set that to whatever we want that to be, we can save. The report rate is the rate at which, as you can see here, it kind of shows the mouse with arrows to the computer and back to the mouse, at which the mouse will report back to the computer and software for your sensitivity. You can drop it back to 125 Hertz, and you can see it gets a lot more sensitive, or you can raise it up to 1000 and we slow down a lot. That's about the same movement here at 1000 Hertz. And down to 125 Hertz. It's about the same amount of mouse movement, so we can see the sensitivity really can be adjusted to make this mouse customizable to whatever you are comfortable with. If we go back to the settings again, we next will go into our memory settings. This we can clean the memory, which will erase all the data on the memory, such as settings, macros, and we have to leave the mouse connected while that happens. We can back up, so we can back up all the data to the PC, so we don't have to back up macros individually. We could back up all of our settings that we have saved to the mouse, and then we can restore. So if we backed up, we reformatted our computer, we go ahead and install the Aorus software again, we can go ahead and restore from that backup that we made previously, so we don't have to go through reprogramming the entire mouse again. And lastly in our settings is the headlight. Like I said, the headlight doesn't have any functionality. It's just the two lights here on the front of the mouse. Maybe at a LAN party with somebody sitting across from you, they would notice that when you're using the mouse, it's not really noticeable. We can adjust the headlight to its brightest setting and all the way down to a setting that's so dim that it appears to be off. It doesn't actually 100% turn off. So that's all the features of the Aorus M7 Macro Engine software. Here we have a refresh, which would refresh the software, and we also have the little person-to-person here, which if we click that, it takes us to the Aorus website. So if we never needed to access information quickly or get information from the Aorus website, they have that built into the software here. If you're ever in a place in the software and you forget where you are or how to get back to the home screen, the little home key here, like I said, brings us back to our home screen. And if we ever go into settings and you want to go back, the little back button here will take us back to the previous screen.